डॉक्टर बाबासाहेब आंबेडकर ओपन यूनिवर्सिटी.
Namaskar students, welcome to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University's Video 8 lecture sessions. I, Dr. Nikita Gadani, Assistant Professor, Department of English, School of Humanities and Social Sciences at Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University. Today our topic is, we'll be talking about the Paper 3, History of English Language, English Literature, and Unit 4, The Age of Chaucer, the Major Writers and Literary Works. So component of our today's presentations are that first we'll be talking about the objectives, after that we'll be talking about the introduction, after that we'll be talking about the William Langland and the Sir John Medieval, after that we'll be talking about John Wycliffe and John Gower, then we'll be talking about the life and the career of Chaucer and Chaucer as a poet, and then we'll be summing up our presentations, and which is followed by exercises and question answers and the reference books and resources. So objective of our today's presentation are that in this unit first we're talking about the major writers of the age of Chaucer and familiarize the students with their life, then to enable and to get detailed informations about the literary works, and then after we'll be talking about the critically evaluate the major literary works of the age of Chaucer. So talking about and starting with this, that as noted in the preceding and the previous unit, at the age of Chaucer was the first significant period in the literary history of English literature. The period marked a new era of new learning. Latin and French were the dominant languages in 14th century England. However, in the later half of the century, English came to its own, and thanks to the sterling work done by Chaucer and some others like Langland, Gower and Wycliffe, who wrote in English and wrote well as well. So Richard too was a great patron of the arts, and the literary culture flourished at his court in the second half of the 14th century. Chaucer was widely known amongst them, and his circle included influential figures such as Sir Lewis, Sir Richard Surrey and Sir John Montague. So often referred to as the father of the English language, Chaucer's poetry and use of English inspired the whole generation of poets. The dominance of French following the Norman conquest of 1660 had impeded the growth of English as a literary language for the hundred of years, and it was not until the 14th century that the vernacular came once more to be used as the language of the choice in all areas of the society, including at the court and in business. So nonetheless, most writers such as Gower still wrote fluently in French and Latin as well as their native tongue and native languages. Chaucer proved that English could be written with elegance and power, and it is thanks to his works that his prestige grew as a medium for serious literature. His poetry naturally inspired praise and imitations from his contemporaries. Of these admirers, the prolific John Lydgate is probably one of the best known today. A monk at the great Benedictine Abbey of St. Edmund at the Bury, he emulated Chaucer's style, and in the prologue to his Siege of Thebes, even portrayed himself as meeting Chaucer's pilgrims at the inn in Canterbury. Although Lydgate's works has suffered from adverse criticism, he played a crucial role in the ensuring Chaucer's popularity throughout the 15th century. So talking about the major writers of this age, of the Chaucer's age and the contributions. The first we'll be talking about the William Langland. The English poet William Langland, that is 1330 to 1400, is known as the probable author of the Piers Plowman, an allegorical poem which attacks abuse in the government and the church and deplores the misery of a people without true leadership. So one of the greatest example of Middle English alternative poetry. This is an allegorical work with a complex variety of religious themes. So one of the major achievements of Piers Plowman is that it translates in the language and the conceptions of the closeted into the symbols and images that could be understood by the layman. So in general, the language of the poem is simple and colloquial, but some of the author's imagery is powerful and direct. So Langland voiced and social discontent and preached the equality of man and dignity of labor. So almost nothing is known of Langland himself, and if he authored any other works of literature, they are no longer known to us. So nonetheless, on the basis of Piers Plowman alone, Langland is one of the most important figures in Middle English literature. So Langland was writing during a period of significant cultural and linguistic change in England. The English language itself had been rapidly changing as a result of the Norman conquest and increased interaction with the European continent, and English culture had entered a period of significant strife. The rampant corruption of the medieval Roman Catholicism had incited a great deal of unrest among the English populace, and number of the authors, Langland among them, would directly address their own thoughts on Christianity, the Church and the state of England as a whole throughout the medium of poetics allegory. In so doing, Piers Plowman became internationally not a rallying point for one of the largest revolts in medieval history, and the poem would be appropriated by a number of radicals throughout the England. Talking about the Sir John Mandeville, Sir John is the pet name used by the unidentified 14th century English author of the one of the most famous and widely read travel romance of the hero, that is the Voyage and the Travels of Sir John Mandeville Knights. He probably wrote his travel first in Latin, next in French, and then turned them into English. The tales are selections from the narratives of genuine travelers, embellished with Mandeville's additions and described it as his own adventures. The book is a kind of guide book to the Holy Land, but the writers himself went much farther, cast and reached China. In fact, so Mandeville's travel was much admired, read and copied. Indeed, hundreds of manuscript copies of his book were made. So there are 19 still in the British Museum. So originally written in the Norman French about 3060 and translated into 10 major European languages including English and Latin by the end of the century, the travels enjoyed undiminished popularity for over 400 years. So purporting to be the travel guide, emphasizing the exotic wonder of the near and far east, it is generally considered one of the finest works of the imaginative literature of the medieval period. Now talking about another great writer, that is John Wycliffe. Among the greatest contemporaries of the Chaucer, few deserve more attention than John Wycliffe, for he was one of the first Englishmen to challenge the authority of the Catholic Church. He was the most influential prose writer of the 14th century. His fame rests upon his complete translation of the Bible. This work was finished in 1383, just 1 year before his death. And however, the translation was not done by himself alone, but a number of men worked on it under his supervision and guidance. So, though often copied in manuscript, it was not printed for several centuries. And Wycliffe's New Testament was printed in 1731 and the Old Testament not until the year of 1850. But the works and the style of his translations, which was read and reread by the hundreds of thoughtful men, were of real and permanent service in fixing the form of English language. So Wycliffe held that the presentations had raised a barrier between a man and a god, and both by pen and in pulpit he endeavored to break it down, and free access to the Bible was what the spiritual life required. Now, talking about the John Gower, the another critic of the age of Chaucer's, was an English poet and the pearl poet and the personal friend of the Chaucer. He is remembered primarily for three major works: the Mirror de Almena, Vox Calamities, and the Confessio Amantios. So, three long poems written in a French, Latin, and English respectively, which are united by common moral and political themes. Gower criticized this vigorous life and painfully afraid of the consequences. He was a person of shrewd business instincts with a large amount of landed property in East Anglia. Some authorities have inclined to prove him as a lawyer, but M.J.C. Macaulay, his biographer, suggests that he made his money as a merchant, judging by the way in which he speaks the city and the number of the merchants with whom he was in a personal communication. However, that may be, it is clear that about the middle life he is concerned entirely with the management of his estate and the writing of books. His sympathizers were aristocratic and conservative, and the peasants' revolt horrified him exceedingly, not merely as an unholder of a law and order, but as a landlord with vested interest. So, talking about the another great personality, that is John Lydgate, he is credited with some lines, and almost a quarter of which is contained in The Fall of Prince, his longest single work. The poem is greatly amplified version of Laurent de Permefit's translations of the Boccaccio's de Cassibus Vera Illustrum, with additions from a variety of sources including the Bible, Ovid, and other works by Boccaccio. The result of a universal encyclopedia of history and mythology, somewhat ponders in tone and stop. Ponders in tone and excessively fleshed out with the moral teaching. The work was commissioned from the Lydgate in 1431 by Humphrey, Duke of Gloucester, younger brother of Henry V and protector of England during the minority of Henry VI, and it occupied with the following 8 years of his life. Lydgate wrote religious poetry throughout his career. The Life of Our Lady was probably composed for Henry V in about 1450 to 16, a genuinely devoted compositions written in his high style. The work drawn upon the prototypal Gospel of Spiro Matthew, cut साइज नीचे ले लो ना स्क्रिप्ट बस बस. Start. The work draws upon the apocryphal gospel of pseudo Matthew. Stop. एक मिनट. Start. No Matthew, as well as other devotional texts such as the Meditations Vitae Christi. It has been praised for its religious intensity and luminous rhetoric. So now talking about another great personality of the age of Chaucer, that is John Trevisia. John Trevisia is the chronicled in the history of English literature as a translator of an originally Latin work, that is Ranulf Hickden Polychronicon, and originally composed in Latin. This universal history is a chronicle of the period from the creation to 1357. Its author was a Benedictine monk who arranged the work into 17 books in imitations of the 7 days of the Genesis, and this translation was made by John of Trevisia in 1330 to 1412 and completed in 1387. So there was an increasing interest in history throughout the late medieval period, and Trevisia version was just one of several standard vernacular histories available. His translation is interesting for the additional comments that he makes to update the original text, where Hitkin, for example, discusses the fact that the children learn their lessons in French. Trevisia comments that the situation has changed by the time he is writing, and the lessons now conducted in English. He acknowledges that this has its advantages for speed of learning, but points out rather disapprovingly that now children know no more French than they feel left heel, and that is the harmful for them if they should pass the sea and work in a strange lands. Another talking about the Nicholas Law, that is in 1424, prior to the Christian period, priority of the Mount Grace in Yorkshire, is known for his translations of the work that mirror of the blessed life of Jesus Christ, and it is originally written in the Latin as the Meditations Vitae Christi. The holy text describing in the devotional life of the Christ was extremely popular throughout the medieval Europe. The mirror of the free translations of the work and the concentrating on the passions, the mirror dispense meditative and doctoral comment on the Bible. Its 63 chapters are each split into seven sections, and every section representing a day of the week. Now talking about the Chaucer, his life and works, that above all there was a Chaucer, a scholar, traveler, businessman, a courtier, sharing in all the string of life of his time and reflecting it in literature as no other but Shakespeare has ever done. Chaucer was born in London and sometimes written in 3040 to 3044 to John Chaucer and Agent Compton. John Chaucer was an affluent wine merchant and deputy of the king's butler. So throughout his father's connections, he held several positions early in his life, serving as a noblewoman's page, a courtier, a diplomat, a civil servant, and a collector of his scrap metals. His early life and educations were not strictly documented, although it can be summarized from his works that he could read French, Latin, and Italian. So now talking about his works, that the Chaucer works are sometimes grouped into first French period, then Italian period, and finally an English period. So with Chaucer being influenced by those countries' literature in turn. So talking about the French period and the impact of French period in Chaucer works, that first in that the French influences when though writing in English, he drew inspirations from the rich French poetry of the period, which was produced partly in France, partly in England. So Chaucer experimented with the numerous lyric forms which the French poets had brought to the perfections. He also translated in whole or in part the most important of medieval French literature, and also tried to try his hand on the narrative poems that in the 13th century of the Romance of the Rose. This poem, with its Gallic brilliancy and audacity, long exercised over Chaucer's mind the subdominant influence which it possessed over most the secular poets of the age. So another is the Book of the Duchess, and this book was written on the death of the Duchess Blanche of the Leinster, the wife of the John of Gaunt. It was an elegy. Chaucer was actually moved as she was his patterns and he wanted to please John of Gaunt. So the complaint unto the pity, the complaint of Mars, the Queen Annelida. So lastly, we can conclude that the spirit of a new learning accelerated in the transitions from the medieval to the modern, and this was the spirit of the Italian Renaissance, which was to reach its full blossoming in England only during the age of Queen Elizabeth. And Chaucer played a most important role in the importing of this spirit from the Italy to England, and there was vast intellectual awakening and the unprecedented spirit of literary activity. It was the heyday of England poetry, and English became a national language from a dialect. And the age also witnesses the foundation of an English prose style, and humanism was one of the potent formative influences of the age of Chaucer. So now talking about the exercise, that you have this questions amongst you, that the write a note on contemporary of John Govers and the literary works. So what you need to do, that you need to go through your textbook, you need to go through this video lectures, and you can write about this note on the literary work. Then we have a question, that is significance of the writing of the William Langland. So what you can do in these questions, you can write, you can start with the introductions and you can write about the William Langland, and you can also talk about his works in your answers. And then you have a analytical note on the age of Chaucer. So in this lecture as well as in its previous lecture as well, you have heard about it, you might have read about it. So what you can do this, you can easily write these questions not only in your answer sheet, but not only in your notebook, but also in your answer sheet as well. So then after we have a questions like, give reason for the calling Chaucer the father of modern English poetry. Yes, the most important thing that we have discussed today and in this session. So why the Chaucer is known as the father of modern English poetry, that he went to the many countries, he was influenced with the many writers, he was influenced with the other countries literature as well. So why he is known as the father of modern poetry, that you need to talk about in this questions. You also need to talk about the influence and why he was so influenced in and why he known as a father of modern English poetry and the modern English literature as well. And then we have questions that write a note on Sir John Manbury. So what you need to do that you can also read out your text and you can write about this, and also you can also talk about his works in this questions. And I hope that you have understood the topic, and I hope you have understood the previous lectures as well, and see you soon in next session. Thank you.
स्वाध्यायः